And good evening, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to my channel. It's called McDuff_2020. This is my backup channel for Kennedy's man to smash the CIA. We're still on mission. We're still here to smash the CIA. And we've got some help to smash it tonight from a couple of great young reporters we've been working with, from Addy Ads and Dave Underdown. I've got both of these guys on Skype here, and so hang on just a second and let me connect, and we will start the show. All right, and here we are. Dave on the left and Addy on the right with the microphone and the book of the secret team, which I've just featured this week. I guess you picked up on that. I did a 3-part series on the secret team to emphasize how important that book is and what an anchor it is for my studies, and I hope for everyone else. So let's start on the left here in the red. Dave, how are you tonight?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
So I spent the morning with Addy. We did a couple reports from Royal Oak, Michigan, and 2 from downtown Detroit.
Yeah, I watched all of it, and it's fascinating to see you guys walking around there. It's like this is what George Webb has always been doing, and now you guys are out there doing it. I say bravo, bravo, guys. And what about yourself, Addy? You're smiling. Have you had a good day today?
Yeah, I've actually had a pretty good day and a half here, John. And yeah, great day today with Dave. As I said this morning, we ate at the Breakfast Club right by that famous Catholic Basilica in Royal Oak, Michigan. We also went downtown Detroit and really just picked up the remnants, or what seemed to be the hangover from the last 2 days of protest there at the TCF Center, right by the Renaissance Center as well.
Well, what's going on? Are they still counting up there?
As far as the counting goes, it seems to be finished in the TCF Center. I went there, and Dave, I think, was there for the first time recently, and a pattern I noticed was the first night people were allowed all the way up to the very end of the TCF Center, so you could access the whole pavilion basically. And then they kind of set up these gates or barriers, metal barriers, just to discourage people, I guess, from going up there. And then they moved that boundary even further down the street today as well. Dave and I actually, as you saw, John, we just kind of walked through, and nobody seemed to care except the one police officer who visited us and was kind of harassing us a little bit. But we just kind of ignored him, and there was a couple of municipality workers there as well that were just cleaning up trash, it looked like. And the big rally, I guess, that we were at was yesterday with the Stop the Steal movement coming down, with their representation being this pretty well-known journalist by the name of Brandon Straka, who I was able to talk to for a few moments. And so we did do a short interview. They were in Lansing today, which, as far as I know, is the capital of Michigan. Correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but that's where they were at today. So it was pretty quiet in downtown Detroit today. But we did actually walk up to the Fisher building, Max Fisher's building, and then the original GM building as well. Both pieces by the master architect Albert Kahn, who was originally born in Prussia and died in Detroit. So yeah, just the stuff that we've been going over today in the last couple of days. But yeah, I got some good exposure over at the studio channel as well. So at the Neighborhood News Studio.
Excellent. Now, Dave, you're obviously not in the same place. Are you still in Michigan, or where are you?
Yeah, I'm in my home in Birmingham, Michigan, which is about 15 miles from downtown Detroit. So It's the suburb of Detroit. Like, when we're talking about the different counties being sort of the barometer counties for the country, and in Michigan, Oakland County, where I live, is one of those places that was expected to, sort of be a bellwether county. And of course, going into Detroit, crossing over 8 Mile Road into Detroit, into Wayne County was where we were, looking after the TCF Center. It's very hard for me to call it that. It'll always be Cobo Hall to me. So it's hard that it has a new name, but they change the names of these things.
What is it, Coble?
Cobo.
Oh yeah, Cobo. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, geez, I don't know much about that area up there. I'm glad that you guys are there, though, and I'm so glad that you've taken up the torch with George and the work that all the great journalists are doing. You guys are right there in the thick of it, and I kind of wish I could be there with you, but it's your town, it's your home. I was kind of freaked out by people announcing today that that Biden has won. Of course, we know Biden hasn't won. I mean, and people forget about Bush versus Gore and all of the time that it takes to get these things through the courts. They think that it's not going to court, and it is. I mean, it's obvious that there's so many issues that are going to have to be litigated, and nobody's going to compromise. This is a fight to the finish. So I wanted to ask you guys: do you get a sense that we're going to get steamrolled here? That the media and the Democratic people, the people that are just fanatics for Biden, and who knows why they are, but they're fanatical for him. Do you think we're going to end up with a situation where they're pressuring us to accept Biden as the new president, even without going through all the litigation, the Supreme Court, and finally the Electoral College and the Congress counting the votes? What does it feel like up there where you guys are?
I think, John, they are testing people's wills. They're testing the collective will of the people. I kind of came to that conclusion earlier this afternoon. They're really, testing that energy that people have, the stamina to kind of fight against this corruption. It's a tooth and nail type of effort and scenario that these people are willing to take it to. When you demand a fair and transparent election, it shouldn't be too much to ask for. In theory, when you look at the Constitution, when you look at our judicial system and what it should stand for, but when there is a secret team, as Fletcher Prouty puts it, and shout out to Dave for putting me on this author, who controls every aspect of the levers, the power structure, the choke points, the pressure points. It's really hard to overcome that. It really has to be a grassroots level, a person-to-person change and revolution. I think, even if it's revolution, I think is a very contextual word, right? Depending on the time in history, so people may construe that one way or another, but it doesn't necessarily mean violence by any means.
Addy, I'm so impressed that you've got the secret team right there next to you. I wonder if you'd do me a favor and pick it up and read the subtitle of the book. Read The Secret Team and then the words under that.
So this is a book by L. Fletcher Prouty. It's the Secret Team, the CIA and its allies in control of the United States and the world.
That's what I wanted you to read. The CIA and its allies in control of the United States and the world. And that was written in 1972. So it hasn't gotten any better since then. The CIA and its allies have just sunk in deeper and deeper. As you know from my dad's career, military officers were working shoulder to shoulder with people who were CIA plants, with stars and eagles on their shoulders, but in fact they were really CIA. So how do we get this secret team out of our most important and most our institutions, and especially out of our military. The idea that 17 intelligence uh, services combined in that assessment to say that President Trump was dealing with the Russians, and it's all false. That is the kind of thing that they can do because they've got the secret team in place. They've got what they call their focus person in every little agency everywhere, and that has to be exposed and it has to be stopped. And I don't know if we have to actually splinter the CIA and cast it to the winds, but it's a great metaphor for what really needs to be done. Dave, you've obviously read Secret Team and been aware of Fletcher Prouty's work, and I just have to say to you, both of you, thank you so much for taking that interest, because Fletcher Prouty knew. He was right in the same office with my dad, and this really is a coup. It's been a coup rolling on for, I started at the assassination of Kennedy. That's my beginning. A lot of people start at 9/11 right now because that's where, like Spiro of Newsbud, he's really into 9/11 as his coup departure date. Other people will go back to the creation of the Federal Reserve back in 1913, and other people might even go further than that. But this coup has been going on a long time, and as I've been saying all summer, this is their big play. If they don't win this one, then they're going to get exposed and they're going down the drain. So, as you said at the beginning, Addy, they're pulling out all the stops to try and win this thing, and I'm glad to hear you all are calm, that you're sitting back, you're going to wait, because that's what we have to do. We have to let the process play itself out. And it's a shame that the media is trying to convince the Democratic voters that the election's over, because that's a fraud, and that's a dangerous fraud. What do you think, Dave?
Well, just kind of reviewing the kind of issues that we were talking about today down at Cobo in the voting center. When you asked what my analysis was, I see it as still an ongoing crime scene right now, that they're trying to figure out what they're gonna how they're gonna play it. I think Addy's right. They're sort of feeling out how people will respond to it. But as far as the study of the secret team, like you introduced me to him on your show. I've watched quite a few of his interviews. There's a lot of long interviews, and the thing that the point he made that really I connected with was he said that when they created the National Security Act in 1947, that most analysts, they don't consider what the environment was, going into when they created that, and who liked it and who didn't like it, who fought it, and so those are all, angles that I've tried to, take from his lectures or interviews to try to get a sense of how the different rivalries were set up, going back in that post-World War II era. Because I also believe that the creation of the Atomic Energy Commission is one of the key, units or parts of our government and history that we really need to understand, because I feel like a lot of the stories of the new industrialists, or this kind of internet age, most of their backstories are related to the Manhattan Project and to that era with the Atomic Energy Commission. So those are all areas that try to really understand who the key players were, and how they relate to the current players, because they're in Fletcher Prouty's book he goes through who these intelligence officers are, how they get set up into as you said, the different focal points within the Army, the military, the government, other intelligence agencies, private corporations, charitable foundations, all those things. They're in all of those different areas. So it's you guys have talked a lot. You and George have talked quite a bit about the metaphor of a tree with its leaves and its roots. And if you just focus on the leaves, it's very hard to understand the roots. And ideally, you can go back to the seed and know what it looks like and study how it grows and what it looks like as far as the root structure and also the trunks and limbs and branches. So that's the way that I'm approaching it. I'm like George, I'm somebody that tries to use network analysis is the basis of how I link things together and try to understand the different business relationships mostly that people have had and how they relate to today's characters, going back to your dad and in that crazy era when all this stuff was first being created and trying to come up with new systems to sort of tamp it down or come up with something new and just studying what happened with all these different groups and where they are today.
I think that's a great analysis. I like to just add, because we are focusing on the secret team for a few minutes here, that Fletcher Prouty's real concern was not that we created a CIA as a central intelligence gathering function, but that, and not really that it had some ability to do covert operations. The objection is that it was supposed to do it at the direction of the National Security Council. The National Security Council and the president, and that's the very top of our government. But in practicality, Dulles was able to set up a system where there would be this committee, like the 5412 committee was one of them. And they'd have to sell their idea to the 5412 committee, and then that committee would go to the National Security Council and say, hey, we've already vetted this is okay, just sign off on it, and they'd sign off on it. And the idea of checks and balances is completely destroyed when you have a intelligence service that's doing covert operations in peacetime without the supervision of the National Security Council itself, as contemplated, in the law. Now, it's crazy that we've allowed the CIA to go in and take over the Pentagon, but they have. The Joint Chiefs of Staff now, they're not there to run our armies and run our wars. No, they are basically personnel chiefs. And their job is to supply the CIA with whatever personnel the CIA needs, just like Fletcher Prouty did with the Air Force back in the 50s. Well, instead of the CIA borrowing some military units anymore, they're basically running the military and sending them wherever they sense that need for military force to be used under the CIA. That's the tragedy, that our chain of command has just gotten destroyed by the efforts of these secret teams. So I wanted to get over to Addy for a minute. Addy, I met Dave, I think at the first charrette back in March of this year, if not before that. But Addy, I hadn't met you before. Tell me a little bit about where you come from and how you ended up hanging out with a scurrilous character named George Webb.
Yeah, John, we didn't meet until I think it was you guys' second charrette, if I'm not mistaken, there at Mystery Island. And that was a really fantastic a few days. I think it was a week or so earlier this summer. And we got to spend time and hang out there, really share information. And yeah, it was a really great experience. But before I go deeper into the charrettes, I actually emailed George Webb by way of one Dr. Paul Cottrell, and he, said to me, "You got to check this guy out. His work is amazing, and he's making big waves." And so I hit up George, and George, for whatever reason, wanted to talk to me as well. He accepted my invite, and I think George is a pretty open-minded guy. He's willing to talk to people, which is one attribute, a characteristic that I think is quite positive about him. And from then on, I got to get deeper into his work, And then he got kicked off YouTube. He was actually one of the early birds, if we're speaking strictly 2020 time frame. Before the great YouTube purge, very recently, just within the last week and a half or 2 weeks or so, which you were a victim of, John, I know, among many others. And as far as the Shreds, as I mentioned before, I had a great time down at Mystery Island, and the culture of these people that I've met in person over this year is really been quite surprising for me. Very welcoming. It's surprising in a really great way. Very the Osprey crew, the Ospreys that this group is, and it's something I'm quite grateful for. To have met people like this, because for a long time it was just me watching videos in my room or reading in my room, and that was it. And watching other people teach, and eventually you have to get in on the game. So I got that confidence to start my own channel a couple years ago now. It actually got terminated for hate speech. I was doing World War II videos, and weird timing. It was like right after I entered in Canada. I went to Ottawa. I think it was last year. It was towards the end of last summer. Channel got terminated, so I lost a bunch of content, and I got really discouraged. And but I got back at it, and here we are. So it's been a very up and down year for sure, for me personally, and I think for the world at large. But we've had a really crazy election week here at the Neighborhood News Studio, and it's progressed from George getting his channel removed, and the purge, as I mentioned before, and it's really come to a head here election week, as to tie it back to the secret team and what we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation. Just the fact that these people are so desperate, they're kind of digging in military terms. That's kind of how I see it. They're digging in, and they're gonna hold on tooth and nail. So I would like to volley a question back to you, John. What do you think about you responded so well to getting your channel removed? I'm sure that was discouraging. Do we just keep on keeping on, or do we change our strategy? What do you think about how the last week has transpired?
Me? Well, I continue to be disappointed and shocked at all of my liberal friends who just don't seem to be able to see past the three words "orange man bad." That is just these are smart people, These people have advanced degrees. They've been, involved in politics, but only on the one side. And a lot of my early music was done in context of the folk scene and supporting labor movement. Went to a few union rallies. Did a lot of singing of the old songs like "You Can't Scare Me, I'm Sticking to the Union," and that kind of thing. I still have a great deal of respect for people who come from that orientation. The Wobblies, for instance, the WWW, and the fight for workers' rights, which was so necessary to get to an 8-hour week, and the child labor laws. I mean, if it weren't for the strikers and the unions, we'd still have kids digging in the mines. That kind of thing is real, and so I respect and love the people that have fought for that. But for goodness sakes, you can't take it to the point where we lose the sovereignty of our country and we give it over to the UN. And they don't see that that's where this is headed. But you go back, if you put a Democratic person in the presidency right now, then we're going to be back in the Paris Accords. We're going to be paying for a carbon tax, and we're going to be back involved with Iran, with the bad guys in Iran, and we're going to find ourselves just powerless to retain the sovereignty of our country in the face of the economic disaster that'll happen. I think also we're looking at an extended lockdown. You know, if the Republicans win, then we will not lock down the country. But if the Democrats win, then they will lock it down, and that will be really bad because our economy is already in bad shape. And what do they want? They want people to be dependent. They want everybody to be dependent on the government for our food, for our daily bread, for our fresh water, for our lives. And that is so obvious to me that they're just draining the small business people. They're getting rid of everybody that can make a living on their own without some type of government subsidy. And, you know, they're getting ready to pass out great subsidies. There'll probably be some black reparations if the Democrats get in control. And in other words, the idea of the American spirit of pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps, of everybody has a chance, there's a level playing field, you go out there and follow your dream, that's over. And it's practically over now. But if they get their man in the White House, then the idea of an individual going out and making it on their own is going to disappear. We're all going to be dependent, and we're all going to have to make a deal with them for our daily bread. I can't put it more clearly than that. This is a very, very crucial election. So I don't know. I mean, people have been giving us a lot of spin about, you know, and George has straightened it out, I think, that we have some operatives out there that are telling us that these ballots have been marked with radioactive ink or something that's going to be able to easily distinguish the fair ballots from the fake ones, like it was a sting operation. But then we have people like David Knight at InfoWars that's saying that's BS, that that didn't happen at all. And the people that are saying that are trying to spin us and keep us calm and keep us take us away from being alert and vigilant citizens, and to just lay back and let the thing work through, kind of like Q was saying, which we haven't heard much from Q, and we certainly haven't heard anything. When I think of Q, for some reason, I get a picture of Bill Barr in my mind. I don't know what that's about. But guys, we are, you know, we're the wall. We're the last line of defense. The mainstream media isn't going to do it. And so you guys are, I mean, we're depending on you. You're depending upon us. And I'm so glad that you got energized by getting in touch with, well, Paul Cottrell is a wonderful asset too. And he's shared with me a few times. He saw the idea of a weapon, of a biological weapon possibly coming out of Wuhan way back at the beginning. And if people had listened to him, and I would add probably Dr. Shiva up in Massachusetts, and all of the doctors, the frontline doctors, this is all political, and it's all part of the same thing. And that's what really gets me. The last week or so, I throw out the name of Klaus Schwab and Davos and the World Economic Forum, and everybody goes, yeah, that's it. So I think we're seeing it now, that to me, the people that are pulling down the columns of our temple here in the United States, the people that are trying to destroy us, are these people that are associated with the Davos elites, the Davos billionaires, as Harley Schlanger calls them. Which reminds me, I want to ask you guys, have either of you been investigating or already aware of the LaRouche organization and the work that they've been doing over the past few decades? And Harley Schlanger in particular, because he's been a guest on my show and will be back in about 10 days. So have you guys been checking out LaRouche along with everything else? Dave?
Oh, wow, that's fantastic, John. I didn't know that Harvey Slang was on channel. We actually met some locals here. I couldn't tell you exactly where they're from. Somewhere in Michigan, for big time LaRouche supporters, and that was a few weeks ago now. But they gifted me a book, which I think was released in 2008, I want to say. It was for the '08 election, where it outlines LaRouche's political philosophy. I haven't fully digested it, but I have kind of lost it a bit. Gotten gifted many books recently. We also bought many books, Secret Team being one of them. I just got Sean Atwood's American Made, which I've already read on Kindle, but I wanted to get a paperback as well. Sean Atwood, one of my favorite nonfiction true crime authors. And of course, George's book here, Blackberries Matter. I don't know if you guys can see. There you go. It's the famous Imran Awan. But yeah, just to get back to your question, you asked, excuse me, John, what did you ask again?
Well, just to see if you guys were starting to investigate LaRouche PAC, LaRouche Pub
Okay.
online, EIR, the publication, and all the resources that they have up online. And Dave, I imagine you've had a chance to look at it.
I didn't. The first exposure I ever had to LaRouche PAC was when Mark Kulak showed that video about the the idea of connecting the continents with the railroad, with Siberia and Alaska, and sort of recovering the history of the Civil War. That was the first I'd ever heard of them. I actually had never heard of Lyndon LaRouche, and growing up. But as far as their their research and the things they've written, I mean, I'm as we sort of talked about before, John, like I'm really interested in the Perm Index. What that system was. And then also, just growing up in Detroit, Max Fisher wasn't, an iconic character growing up. And to see that he, has these, roots as far as, dealing in the drugs and weapons and sort of feeding into that Mark Rich and Bob Maxwell network, I'm really, studying that and trying to learn about it. And they've done a lot of really, deep investigations in that organization on those specific characters. So, to me, the mega group is they called the project megatons to megawatts. I think as a tip of the cap to the mega group. I think that is a real situation that happened. So it is something to study. There's a lot of you can really understand a lot more about the history of kind of the OSS and its kind of merging into the American system, after World War II, as we talked about with the secret team and the creation of the CIA. A lot of the roots of this stuff is from the OSS, which was a partnership with the American and the British intelligence for World War II. And a lot of the media, a lot of the information that we get is through the filter of the OSS or the more modern, versions of it. So,
yeah, that's for sure. And Mockingbird Media is all part of it. It's all a part of it. Let's see. What else was I going to ask you about? It's slipped my mind. Well, let me say. I know what I wanted to add. You've read that book there, American Made, and I have not. Well, you want to give us a quick book review?
Sure. Yeah, I read this book. I think it was earlier this year. I think I've actually read this twice on Kindle. I got it, I think, through a giveaway, if I want to say. Sean Atwood often does giveaways. I actually think he's doing one right now. If people want to check him out on Amazon, he's doing a book away for a week or so, usually around holiday season, just on Kindle. But I wanted to get the paperback. This is American Made, Who Killed Barry Seal, Pablo Escobar or George H.W. Bush. And I was actually talking about George Herbert Walker Bush a bit earlier this week. I think it was actually off camera with Dave because I did interview Nick Bryant yesterday, and he was the the head honcho of the executive branch, of course, during the Franklin scandal. But this really talks about Barry Seal, the pilot, who is, for those who don't know, is the character that Tom Cruise played in the same movie, and was trafficking cocaine and drugs from Colombia principally, I believe, to Arkansas, which again was where Bill Clinton was the governor. And in other books that, and there's Bo, the Wonder Dog for Dave.
You heard Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
You heard Bill Clinton.
We talked about Bill Clinton before, so Bo knows what we're talking about. But he's also written about Jeffrey Epstein and the boys on the tracks, who are, of course, the boys Arkansas-sided. But fantastic writer, Sean Atwood, American Made, and he's several books that he's written about crime history, particularly in the drug empires of Latin America as well. So fantastic book, recommended.
I see we've got our canine contingent there with us, Dave. Who's that?
This is my dog Bo. He's my my companion, I guess. So he's a Legato Romagnola truffle hunting dog, and he's very friendly, and he does bark and cause trouble though during the show sometimes. So
we know we've got our Toto here at my house, so that's great. Let me ask you, Addy, there's a gentleman there next to you. He's been running around with gaffing tape, and looks like he's part of the scenery. But I think he's probably a little more than that. Let's bring him into our conversation there.
Yeah, thanks, John.
So this is Aaron Adler,
everybody.
Co-founder of Neighborhood News Studio.
I do what needs to be done around here as we continue to have this tiger by the tail and make it happen. I wanted to quickly answer the LaRouche question, though. We definitely have our share of EIR reports. This is what I could grab in the short time, though.
Put it up there again and hold it still, because I couldn't see it.
This is one. So actually, I don't know if you were able to see, John, because
CO2 reduction is a mass murder policy designed by Wall Street and the City of London. Yeah. I'd have to agree with that. Okay.
Well, we got a few of these. This is actually our second channel, just like you. We used to have a channel called Neighborhood News Hour. I guess we're not on our channel. We're on your channel. Sorry, I'm just, but we have a channel now called Neighborhood News Studio. So anybody who's not subscribed can be encouraged to go over there and subscribe to Neighborhood News Studio. But on our old channel, shortly before it was taken down, we had a whole LaRouche night here at the last charrette. I don't know if you were able to catch that.
I did.
Oh, you saw that? Okay, good. We were hoping that you got to see that because, George put on his good interview hat and he went around and did the whole thing with the LaRouche folks. And I thought we had a really productive night. And then, of course, YouTube canceled our channel, which threw us in a little bit of a tailspin. But we were talking about doing a Friday night LaRouche night here at the NewsHour studio and having the Coquindas and other LaRouche folks, because they have a really big Michigan contingent, inviting them here every Friday night and doing stuff. And we shouldn't have let the channel being knocked us off course, but we did a little bit. So next Friday, LaRouche, we won't disappoint you, I promise.
It has been a very bumpy ride for all of us. I was actually lucky that I got a strike back in May, because that got me to go out and get my 1,000 on my backup channel. So then I was able to just roll right on over here to McDuff_2020 with people have been joining this now. We're up to about 1,500, which is not 11,000 where we were, but we're 500 in a week is pretty good. So I think we're going to be building back, and I'm going to stay on YouTube as long as I can, because frankly, it's the biggest game in town. That's why it ought to be regulated, because it really is the biggest game out there. And when I get thrown off of YouTube, then I'll go to something else. I just like everybody else. I'd love to find a place that I felt comfortable, but right now I'm just going to stay here as long as I can. And I call them out. I say, YouTube, you guys, you've really done a bad thing, dumping all of these channels. It's a horrible thing for America to lose the ability to have a free and open discussion of our political issues. A terrible thing, but we're going to keep on fighting. I know you guys are. What type of plans do you guys have, say, for the next week or so? What type of investigation is Neighborhood News Studio going to be doing? And what about yourself, Dave? Are you guys going to be keep working together on the Michigan issues? Just tell me your plans for the next few days.
Well, I think George really laid it out. I mean, we're trying to understand Warren Flood and what his role was in the 2016 election, as far as the DNC hacking with Seth Rich and the Mueller report with the Russian trolls. So, we're definitely looking at Warren Flood as a key character. We want to know more about the Mackinac Island meeting that Gretchen Whitmer was a part of, and what that consisted of and who was there. So those are kind of the things that I'm looking at as far as trying to link those 2016 election hacking with the Russians. And then, I feel like, obviously there's a lot of things to complain about with the mainstream coverage, but one of the major ones is nobody's asking, is the 2016 interference related to what's happening right now? And I feel like that's not being asked. And I think it's one of the most important questions.
Very good. How about you, Aaron and Addy? What are you guys going to be working on this week?
Yeah, thanks for the segue. A couple things I would love to tell the Osprey family just coming up here. Tomorrow night, we are going to start our weekly call-in show, our Sunday night call-in show. We're still jostling between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. But you don't do Sundays, right? You're never going to do Sundays.
I'm off on Sundays.
So we were thinking Sunday night would be a good night to do the weekly Osprey wrap-up, kind of, just sit on the couch, take calls, read the chat, and just, digest the week of information and the next week ahead. So that'll start tomorrow night. So please, everyone, get your questions, think up your questions, and call us tomorrow. No calls equals no call-in show. So we would appreciate your calls tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. We'll be here taking calls. But then also a special invitation to you, John, and others out there. You'll be seeing moving forward here. We are going to be doing a Thanksgiving charrette. Is going to be the next time that we, I think George calls it bring them to the Kool-Aid. If you've heard him say that, where we all come together and do the George Webb charrette thing. So Thanksgiving, the week of Thanksgiving, you yourself and any family or friends are invited to come out if you want. Might be a little cold, I know. Maybe we could wait till the spring, but others out there, we will be launching the Thanksgiving charrette for you to reach out and book or coordinate, coming for Thanksgiving. So, if you don't have Thanksgiving dinner planned, George is going to stuff the turkey, with a mask. He'll wear a mask, I promise.
Just for what I'm looking into history-wise is the L. Fletcher Prouty book, as I mentioned, The Secret Team, and then also getting deeper into Servitors of Empire. I just started Dr. Hamamoto's book as well. As far as current events, election week stuff, just keeping my ear to the ground, seeing what's going on, what's the rhythm and the beat of the state, I guess, and the status of the situation. The status of the situation, as our friends across the pond say. There was a protest in Lansing today, as I mentioned, and I'm in touch with various people across the U.S. about stuff that's going on, including George as well. So, really playing it by ear as far as the local thing goes. But logistically, doing all the homework stuff as well, chores, uploading, stuff like that. We're going to get this guy to upgrade our internet.
We got a lot of work to do. Trust me, it has been a wild adventure. But
it's becoming an Osprey meme at this point, but it's fine.
John, I know it's getting close to the end. The last thing I want to say, it is your channel, but Addy, dude, great job.
Yeah,
from all the Osprey family, great job, man. Like, we all were so pumped to see you yesterday. I know, John, you were really touched by. I called you a teacher once in the chat, and you said, "Oh, well, I'm not a teacher." And I was like, "Yeah, we're all co-learners together here," which I agree. We're all teaching each other. But dude, Addy, we were all so pumped. We were all with you there, man, and we're doing it. We're doing it. Channels, no channels, whatever. Like Addy Ads, Dave Underdown. Round of applause from Osprey Nation.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Aaron, and I know Dave does as well. And John, before I hand it off, I just wanted to say, about what I'm working on too, just to finish the question. I just find it ridiculous to add to John's thought earlier that people are so bewitched. Peter Duke calls it, hallucinations, like self-hallucinations, basically, that they just overlook the total incompetence of a leader like Joe Biden. And regardless of what you think about Trump, it just looks quite obvious to me, deductively reasoning the situation now that there's a coup of some sort, or some sort of operation, maybe would be a better word for it. But if Dave wants to respond to what Aaron just said, you can definitely do that, or John.
All right. Well, we are wrapping it up pretty soon. I find it interesting to think about the different aspects. I mean, the different ways that so many different people are looking at this problem. For instance, the LaRouche organization looks at it as a British problem. It's this really coming from the City of London, the Rothschild and the banking system, and the bad guys through London. I was just listening to Jeffrey Prather, and I don't know if you guys have been listening to him or not, but he takes a completely different. He says it's China. He says we are fighting a fourth world war, information, war that we can't even see, but it's a war. It's going on right now. It's invisible war, and China, and so I don't know whether it's China or Britain. I suspect it's a combination, and that's why we're in so much trouble, because the power of those two working together to destroy our country by dividing and conquering. I mean, does it have the appearance that we're being divided right now? I'd say yes. Is there a chance that they are going to conquer us? I would say no. I think that no matter whether you are a Republican or a Democrat or a liberal or a libertarian, you love this country. And I don't think, I don't want to go to war against my liberal friends, and I don't think they want to go to war against me. I think that we all have different opinions. We're very strongly holding our opinions, but that I think is the ultimate question: is can they pull us apart? Can they cause us to start throwing spitballs at each other and escalate from there? And so far, I'd say they can't. They're not going to do it. The Antifa people are going to go out in the streets, and they're going to make noise, and they're going to break things. But there's just too much history in all of us of the love of our country that we're not going to let that happen. At least that's my closing thought for tonight. Dave, how about you? You got a closing thought for tonight?
Well, I just think about with my experience growing up in Michigan and Detroit, and Detroit being the great city that had the race riots in 1967 that really changed the demographic makeup of the city, and how the city thrived or didn't during that time period. I grew up in the suburbs that really thrived in that area during that time frame, and so just kind of looking back and kind of trying to understand who the characters were in in these events that happened in the 60s, and I do think they're all linked together. And Detroit has its roots in a lot of this stuff, and it's hard because you grow up knowing different characters and families in the story, and then you sort of learn these histories, and it's really hard because as we know, we're currently we have a contested election where nobody feels like it was fair. Nobody feels like there's a resolution that could happen where people would be satisfied that it was handled correctly and that everything's okay now. I think that that's impossible at this point. So, you know, the idea of having people fighting or confused or just giving up and, you know, focusing on something else other than, you know, the election or who their favorite political party is, you know, I think we're at a point where people are really exhausted from that. And so hopefully with the shows that we're putting together and these groups and newsroom groups that we can, you know, get information out in a way that, you know, good, bad, or ugly, at least people can understand it and have a narrative that makes sense and follows logic and doesn't require you to have these, you know, leaps of faith, you know, with big holes in the story that don't make sense. You know, people are exhausted from all that stuff, and you know, that's what we're trying to do is put it, you know, explain the sequence of events in a way that you understand what the drives are, why people did it, you know, why were they secretive about it, why did they create intelligence, you know, organizations. You know, you talk about the idea of when you're in a declared state of war and what the military's function is in a state of war versus a state of peace, and what's the purpose of an intelligence service in your own land versus a foreign land during times of peace versus times of war. And those are all things that I don't think anybody really thinks about it in that way. But, you know, I think it's important to consider all those things and consider all those scenarios. So when you're trying to, you know, unravel the mess that they've created, to, you know, fall back to a lot of the good systems that we had in place and, you know, use them and not, you know, I don't think we need to radically change everything. I think we need to, you know, go through a filtration process and, you know, take the good parts, you know, there's a lot of good there, and see what a system looks like when it's operating, you know, with people that know what they're doing and have a common purpose, and you don't have key members of these organizations or systems that are, you know, saying their intended purpose is one thing and their actual purpose is something completely different. And then they'll just say that it's national security or that they have some, you know, level of security where you're not even allowed to scrutinize them. And that system is broken. And I don't think people will stand for it when it's explained and, you know, what's going on.
Well said. And that is the message of the secret team. And thank you very much for displaying the very important question or statement of Blackberries Matter. George Webb's been beating that for 4 years now, and we still haven't got the disencryption of the Blackberries that are going to be the key to opening everything up, according to George. And I don't think George has been wrong about this yet. Another great book he wrote about my dad called Let's Call Him McDuff. And that's a picture of my dad on the front there, standing in front of Union Station in Washington, D.C., about 1951. Well, let's leave it right there, guys. Thanks a lot for being with me, Aaron, Dave, Addy, and everybody else. It's just fabulous to be part of this group. Thank you all, and have a great evening. Good night, guys.
Thanks, John. Thanks, chat.